fiends, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and Buddha walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti. Black girl magic, melanin popping. Whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog. When God made you, boo, you know he showed out. Mahogany enchantress, blessings overflow now. Picture of success, seductive silhouettes on a spiritual quest. Manifest and be blessed. Mother, sister, auntie, tribe of Ashanti. Rocking your locks, I got a close crop blondie. The curse and the gift, uplift, apply pressure. Nothing like a black girl getting a shift together. Nothing like a black girl getting a shift together. Nothing like a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. I'm a Black girl trying to get my shift together all the time, and I do that by having these wonderful topics on this podcast, and each week I promise to deliver relevant topics that affect our community. So before we get started, make sure, subscribe. If you're listening on a replay, please make sure and type replay, as well as if you're listening on the audio podcast, make sure you listen, give your girl a 5-star review. It would be so wonderful. And make sure and go to blackgirlsgettingtheirshifttogether.com. All right, we're going to get right into it. I am going to bring one of our fan favorites on, and she's absolutely my favorite. I'm going to bring this beautiful sister on, and she's going to drop some gems and get us all the way together. All right, I'm going to bring Miss Lovely Cerita Yvonne to the stage. How are you, beautiful?
Thank you so much for asking. I'm wonderful and so happy to be here.
I'm so happy you are here. This is going to be a fun topic. And I'm going to say fun because I'm going to try to sprinkle it with some positivity, but it is a necessary topic. But before we get into it, I want to preface this. We're going to talk about toxic older people. I'm not talking about any aging parent who has any kind of disabilities or, they have Alzheimer's or dementia. We're not talking about that at all.
Right.
At all. So don't come for me in the comments.
Come for her. I got her back.
Then come for me.
I got you. We ride or die for real.
We are. We are. But this is a necessary, needed topic. And Cerita and I were talking on the back end, and we said, yeah, this needs to be had. So Cerita, again, thank you so much for coming on and discussing this. All right. Let's get into it. We're going to ask a question, but I'm going to wait for a few more people to log on. How about that, Cerita? Is that okay?
That's perfectly fine.
All right. So, like I said, we are going to talk about different traits of toxic older people. And Cerita, just as a general question, why do you think older people become so toxic? And why do we feel obligated to put up with it?
Well, you just want to jump right in. Let
Yes.
me kind of dip the toe in and lube you up before I put in all 10 of these mind blowing definitions that we're going to talk about when we talk about toxicity. I want to clarify when we as we're talking about um, this particular issue, I want you to know we're talking about relational dynamics. Okay. So none
Mm.
of this is meant to blame or shame or demonize our parents or the elder people in our life. But for real, this is the conversation that some of you don't want to have, but you need to have. Because at the end of the day, when we struggle, whether we're old or we're young, when we struggle with relating to others, relating to people, to having kindness and understanding in our relationships, there's a problem. And usually it goes back to some kind of trauma.
Mm.
So,
As we
we
both
are,
exhale.
yes. And I think that some people feel very strongly about this because they are, they hold on to tradition more than they do healthy relationships.
I would agree with that. Definitely. The traditional part. Again, that's some toxic ass traits that have been handed down. And
Yep.
then we look like the disrespectful person when we're
Yep.
triggered. Like, hey, I don't like how that sounded, or don't touch me like that.
Yes.
Don't play the emotional gymnastics with me.
Yes. Yes.
Mm, I know. I saw the eye roll. I get it. I get it.
I Go ahead.
I like what you said about it. It need this conversation is needed, and it is very uncomfortable. But I feel when you know better, you do better.
Okay, I'm gonna just keep it all the way real because I've been trying to, keep the filter on, but no. The truth cannot be contained.
Let it unleash it. Unleash
And
it.
let me say this too as another disclaimer, a disclaimer from a therapist that as we really talk about toxicity in our elders or our parents or our families, because that's generally what we're talking about, right? That because that's who we care about. I want you to be aware that not only will the truth set you free, but as you see the dysfunctional dynamics in others, you will absolutely begin to see it in yourself if you haven't already. And so be gentle with yourself as you listen to what we have to say, as you unpack this, because really we are talking about generational trauma. Some of us
Absolutely.
just see it differently. We'll put a different lens, a different label. We have so many feelings about what other people are doing and not even recognize how we participate in it. So, this is what I think is going to get real quick.
Well, I have my disclaimer to you is do not hold back. I'm off today. I have all day for this. Let's go. Let's get into it.
I love it. I love it.
Let's get right into it. All right. So again, I asked you that question. Why do you, well, we kind of answered it. Why do we feel like why do we feel it's disrespectful when we're being disrespected?
Okay. So, I think this is a good time to ask the question.
Okay. So we have a few people online now. I really encourage some I want to hear what you all have to say and get your thoughts. I'm going to ask this question. What do you think are what's the elders in your family, what's their definition of respect? How do you think they expect us act to be respectful to them? And then I also want to ask you, what is your perception of respect? I really encourage you all to Drop your thoughts in the comments. We need to know. We want to know.
Please do. Please do. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think part of the challenge is that there is a disconnect. And I've given this a lot of thought over the last 2 weeks. And even I've
Mm-hmm.
done some research because I wanted to understand, even in having conversations with my mother, how she views respect is very different than how I view respect. And I think for our some of our elders, respect was tied into survival, whereas for us, it's tied into our self-worth. So how you see me, how you treat me, if you validate me or invalidate me. This is why we have a thing where we're like, you so disrespectful. He was disrespectful. Like disrespect is an old wound that has been with us for a very long time. And I think it's part of our generational trauma.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My experience from watching older people, if you didn't fear them, you were disrespectful.
That's fascinating and I think true. And I think for them, respect and obedience to authority meant survival.
Mm, mm.
So they had a very different experience with having to respect, having to be silenced, having to do as you were told. And I think for us, that's part of the challenge is because they're wanting unconditional respect because that's what they were taught. They grew up in an environment. So here's where let's just get all the way into it.
Let's do it.
A lot of our elders and our parents, they never had boundaries. They weren't allowed to have boundaries. Their boundaries weren't respected. You could go, listen, going out in public meant the likelihood of you being disrespected. You know what I'm saying?
Explain.
For our, even my mother, she grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and the movie theaters were segregated.
Mm-hmm.
So who you had to be in public, you had to know your place, which is something that a black parent will say to their child. You need to know
Mm,
your place. And having a Karen, having somebody tell you, call you a nigga, disrespect you at any time was a part of everyday life. So
mm-hmm.
when really, when were your boundaries respected? Maybe in the family, maybe when you got home, but the one thing that we've always been able to guarantee respect from was from our children. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you repeat that again?
No matter how we've been treated, no matter what the state of the culture, the one guarantee where you could be respected, you could be loved, and you could be seen was from your children.
Wow.
And here's where the toxicity begins. Because what happens is when we, especially for our elders, and I have to talk about this because one, I'm a social worker, or two, we cannot separate culture from our experiences, especially as Black people, because it's defined us for so many generations. It
Mm-hmm.
shaped us, how we think, how we interact, and how we parent. Because if you need to raise a child to survive, you need to raise them to be obedient at all costs. And see, the
Wow.
problem is for us, we've been freer probably than any other generation. So you
Mm-hmm.
can't raise me to think and be like a slave because slaves are the only people that you
Wow.
can disrespect, that you can treat like shit, talk to any kind of way, and they will give you unconditional respect and positive regard. They will still raise your children and ensure your well-being.
Mm. Compared to our counterparts, I grew up I grew up in a Black neighborhood, but I went to white schools. And when I would go to my white classmates, now that's when I was there. I don't know what happened after I left, but I just know I didn't see disrespect like that, and the yelling and the screaming, the beatings. I just
You
didn't see it. I didn't say it didn't exist. I just did not see it.
so eh, here's one of the big issues that I see in our community and as parents, as people, and how we see children is that white people are much more forgiving of boundary infractions than we are because they can be. I have seen a white kid be like, Mom, you get on my fucking nerves. And if a black person hears a child talk like this, like, we want to slap the kid. We like, oh, you gonna let them just do you like that? Like,
As a matter of fact, in the comments, because there's people on here, I can see the numbers going up. Let us know if you were to tell one of your parents to shut the fuck up. What would your parent do? Please
would you
put it in the comment section.
would, would we be planning your funeral? Would you have to get dentures? Like, what would be the
Your face across the
consequences?
room.
Like, we're laughing, but it's true. Now, I want to say this because I thought I have a 4-year-old, and here's one way that elders are toxic when it comes to boundaries. And this has to be said is that I think because of generational trauma, let me say that, because again, this is not about blaming and shaming, but this is about revealing. Because of generational trauma, some of our elders and our parents are threatened when you attempt to push boundaries, when you attempt to set boundaries, when you assert yourself. Because, see,
Yes.
they view it as disrespect. But see, here's the thing, it disempowers and disrupts authenticity. In essence, you are teaching me how to betray myself, how to sacrifice myself, how to be silent, how to ignore my own thoughts and my own needs and play a fucking role. And
Yes.
this is why it's toxic to us, because I think we've had the luxury more than any other previous generation to be in tune with how we feel, to be in tune with what we want. Like, we read books, you know what I'm saying? Going to therapy, we on the internet. Like, I know you disrespected me because it don't feel good. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But,
Right.
but I think even now, my child is 4. She told me this morning, Mommy, you talk too much. You always, I'm laughing because I couldn't believe she said this. You talk too much. You always telling me what to do and you don't let me talk. Now, I had to take a deep breath because my programming would be to implement the control protocol.
Mm.
Because, see, this is what our elders taught us by the way we were parented. Control at all costs. You're being disrespectful. But see, I know, because I have studied human development, that what she's doing is natural. She's coming into her own. She's starting to think about her role. She recognizes that her voice is important enough that if I cut her off, she know that she has to right to assert herself to say, I am here. I am visible. I have a voice. See me.
Mm.
Because there's agency in there. We know when we're not seen. And see, some of our parents, they want to control so fucking bad because we've been the only people to see them. And this is why we're traumatized,
Ooh,
because it's not our responsibility.
you
It is
just
not
said a
the
word.
responsibility of the kid to see, to affirm, to validate, and to mirror the child. Because that is emotional immaturity. It is covert emotional incest, and we can go there.
You know what? I want to go deeper in that. I would like to read a couple of the comments. So when we asked the question, what would your parents do? What would your black parents do?
Yes,
Let's let's keep it straight. If you told them to shut the hell up. So we have Erica said they would pop me, and she's 47 years old.
yes,
And Pink, I like that name. Pink Dynamite said I would not be here today. Pink Dynamite, neither would I. I wouldn't be here talking to you.
girl.
And neither would Cerita.
No.
But we're gonna touch on this. I love what Pink Dynamite said. She said, hey, Cynthia. She said, my father would reason with us. We could talk to him about everything. And that her dad would apologize also when he was wrong. Girl, that's a blessing.
That's
I never experienced that ever to this day.
That's emotional maturity. That's
It,
what
it really is. Mm. So let's get back into this emotional incest.
So basically, there are, if any one of you have watched any of my videos or have heard me talk, I always talk about there's rules. Like there's rules to trauma, there's rules to dysfunction. There are specific behaviors that one is doing that is counterproductive to intimacy, to connection, to love, to healthy relationships. And see, when it comes to parenting, there's a lot of ways that emotional immaturity could show up, and covert emotional incest is one of them. Now, this is not to be confused with actual physical incest. There's no violation of touch with the body.
Okay.
But what it means is that the emotional support flows from the adult to the child when it's normal in a healthy relationship. But with covert emotional incest, the emotional support flows from the child to the adult. So the child becomes the emotional husband or wife to the parent. They do the confiding. They're always holding space. They will sacrifice themselves or their interest. They are more of maybe like a instead of a parent-child relationship, it may be more like we're sisters. And some of us would think like, well, what's wrong with that? Well, that means that you ain't got a mama. That means that
Ooh.
your needs are not being met. That means that you've learned not just to be a child, but to caretake for your parent as if you were the spouse.
Speaking of that, I remember watching um an episode of Ilyana Fix My Life. She had on a radio personality that was here in Atlanta. Did you see that episode?
I don't think so.
So what happened was the father, yeah, you remember? So I forgot her name. I would
Yeah,
say it,
I remember.
and how she was married, she got divorced. The son stayed with her,
Hmm. She would take
and
them to ceremonies, like award ceremonies.
yes,
Mhm.
and she once Ilyana made it clear, like, yeah, this is like you said, there was no sexual
No,
tendencies,
there's no.
not even touching it, but they were going on dates.
It's a violation of emotional boundaries. So for your listeners who haven't seen this particular episode, it was a woman who called in because she had just gotten remarried, and of course there was an issue with her child, and her child obviously wasn't really feeling the new dynamics. But see, the problem was is that she had made the child her emotional husband. The child took the place of the partner, and Iyanla demonstrated this by serving tea in the bathroom.
Bathroom, yes.
And she said, is this inappropriate? And the woman was like, yeah. She said, basically, so is what you did. Because basically, when this new man came along, she just discarded her child. The child didn't even come to her wedding.
No, she didn't even tell him
She
at
didn't. And
all.
so basically, the child became the surrogate spouse. And the problem with that is that this is different from parentification. So parentification is having adult responsibilities, having to think like an adult, being praised for thinking adult like. And all of this, my lovely listeners, Ursula's lovely listeners, is trauma. So it crosses into covert emotional incest when the parent might talk to you about their sex life. There are clear boundaries that are violated, and the
Mm,
child does not get to be a child in either parentification, which is also called enmeshment, meaning where a parent can be more codependent. They can be critical. They can take on the role of being helpless and being a victim. So you, the child, can come to their rescue. Either way, they are expecting you to meet their needs. So they
mm,
reverse the role, the parent child role. That is
wow.
toxic. And if they demand that you stay in this role and caretake for them, they're basically asking you to become their parent. And it's not only is it controlling, but it renders you invisible because now
Mm,
you're living for them and through them and not
wow.
on your own.
Wow. Whew, that's heavy. I love what Cerinthia said. She said, allowing a child to serve as an emotional caretaker for a parent is a heavy burden for any child to carry.
It is. And it
Mhm.
sets you up for trauma bonds later in life because you've learned how to play your role. You've learned that love is sacrifice, that in order to be loved, you must give, you must do, you must take care of others. That's the problem.
Wow. Excuse me. Thank you. That's something else. Mm. So let's peel back. Before we go on, again, I see more people logging on. I'm going to ask the question again. What do you think your elders in your family, what was their is their definition of respect? And then the second part to that is, how do you, the listener, how do you perceive respect? There's no wrong answer at all. It's just we want to know. So we really do encourage you to drop your thoughts in the comment section.
Mm.
So moving forward, it seems like the parentification is about action, and then the covert emotional incest is the emotion.
So, yeah, so signs of parentification is that, and listen, this happens in families where, there are single parents where, or there's poverty or death in the family. So it does happen, but what impacts how the individual takes it all in is really the emotional maturity of the parent. So with that said, parentification is feeling responsible for your siblings. In your childhood, you lack the feeling of play, so the freedom that other children had, you had more of a sense of responsibility if you were parentified. You felt like you had to be the peacekeeper, or that your
Mhm.
family wouldn't make it without you. You're giving responsibilities that are not age appropriate. And your childhood consisted of compliments about how good and responsible you were. Because that's the
Mm.
message that, oh, I'm loved if I'm responsible. And then they wonder why so many Black women are ultra independent.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And it's very anxiety inducing. It can be, and it can lead to depression because your needs, again, are not being met as the child.
I can see the anxiety because it seems like you have the pressure to be on
Yeah,
all the time.
yeah,
And now that the more you're talking, I can also hear the genesis of a super Black woman with the perfection.
exactly. Exactly. Because if a parent is emotionally immature, when we are not perfect, or where if we're imperfect, we don't do as we're told to do, or you don't play your role properly, then you will be punished or shamed. And that is painful for any child, to be punished for being human.
Isn't
That's
that
why,
something?
yes, it is. But we don't think about it like that because I think, and I would welcome anyone to put in the chat, like, how do we view children? Because so many of us have internalized these very ideas, even though we're not aware of it. Like, our children, should we affirm the humanity in a child? Should a child have a voice, or should they be seen and not heard?
I was just going to say that. Seen and not heard, do as I say, not as I do. Go to your room. Don't cry. Shut up.
All of those are very shame inducing responses, which means that I feel like now something is wrong with me. I am bad. I am defective. And that's why it's toxic.
Mm, that is a very hard pill to swallow. And
It
you're right. All you want to do is you're born being your authentic self. And it's like they're going to verbally, emotionally, physically beat it out of you. Conform.
Yes. And remember, for them, conforming meant survival for a lot of our elders and relatives and parents. But remember, most of them have unresolved trauma. So they're traumatized, they are parenting us from their trauma.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you touched on talking about emotionally immature
Mm,
parents,
mm.
and let's give a couple of signs of toxic older people. And I'll put this. So here's one. They're self centered and have a limited capacity for empathy.
See, the thing is, when we are self-centered, we lack the ability to actually practice and process self-reflection. So
What
someone
does
who
that mean?
so I see, I experience and I participate in the world from a place of a victim. I don't have the ability to see myself and what I'm being and what I'm doing to cause an issue or problem in the relationship. You know what I'm saying? I don't see what I'm bringing and who I'm being, because empathy is the ability to understand other people's feelings. But
Mhm.
if I, just like a narcissist, which some of us and some of our parents and elders are covert narcissists masquerading as martyrs. So they're like,
Mm.
I do everything, I help people, I'm so good, I'm so loyal. When all of that is a manipulation tactic. There'll be one way in public and then another way at home when
Jesus.
it's real. So I'm playing a game, pretending like I know how to help, that I know other people, I know how to, care about other people's feelings and I'm empathetic. But that's what it is. It's a game. I lack the ability to be responsible for myself emotionally and to understand how I'm being impacts other people.
Wow. That's something else. This is huge, disrespectful.
Yeah, but they don't see it as being disrespectful because some of them are very much entitled. And I think when it's easy to talk about the traits of emotionally immature people or a narcissist, because a narcissist is an emotionally immature person. But when it's our parents, it's tough because we idealize them because they've taken care of us, because when we were most vulnerable, they were the ones there. We were dependent on them.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes we don't see the reality of their personality issues or dysfunctions or the way that they relate. But being disrespectful, it ties back into the first one. I don't know. Some of them don't know that they're being disrespectful. Some of them don't care. Some of them feel like, regardless of how I treat you, I deserve unconditional respect because that's the law of the land. That's the unwritten rules that have been passed down. And so, you, regardless of who I'm being, you need to respect them too and love and cater and care for me despite my bad behavior.
And this will roll right into the next one, controlling. Now,
Any,
to
go ahead.
go back a little further, when you asked how do you think the adults would see children, I would answer that they would see children as property, objects.
Hmm. What does that sound like? Where do we get those ideas from? Hmm.
Slavery.
The fucking patriarchy. That's
Yeah.
exactly it. That's exactly it. We're
Mm-hmm.
treated like objects. And see, they treat those who are toxic, they will treat children, their own children, as objects, just as they were
Yeah.
treated. And if they haven't done any work, they will see it as normal. It's
It is
normal.
definitely normalized dysfunction.
Yeah. So I really want to add in this because part of the disconnect on the disrespect topic is that we experience intergenerational trauma as disrespect. And so for them, it is their experience. So If a mother was sexually abused by someone in the family and it happens to her daughter and she handles it the same way it was handled for her, being silent, being quiet, trying to protect the other family members, not doing
Mhm.
anything, that's intergenerational trauma. But to me, my soul, to my heart, is disrespect. But see, they
Mm.
were able to deal for generations with intergenerational trauma by employing two unhealthy coping skills. One is denial. We as Black people have a special brand of denial, and
We
it's so thick, it's
do.
so pervasive, it's so regular. And I know because I've had to work through a lot of things, and it's something I have to be conscious of because the practice trauma response is deny. This is why we deny red flags. This is why we deny when we're actually being abused. Denial.
Ooh. Yes.
And minimization is ignoring the impact of trauma and making the traumatic experience smaller than it is. And this is how our intergenerational trauma is passed down.
Mm. Emotionally reactive.
Hmm. Well, that is the definition of being emotionally immature.
Absolutely.
Because that means you have no real control over your emotions. You probably can't identify your emotions. You are quick to frustration, anger, and rage, which means your frustration tolerance is low. And all of these things you learn as a child. Isn't this what we teach children? We teach them how to care about what other people think, to share, to be kind, not to hit, to positively direct their aggression in ways where they're not hurting other people. But see, a lot of people, they skip that part and they just kind of stayed. We're like, people are like 50 years old, 60 years old, and emotionally they are five.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pink Dynamite says they do what they're taught. You're right. I will. I've seen adults that elders that I know. Now I can see it. I couldn't see it before, but I see it now. Over the past couple years, I saw a 80-year-old acting like a 12-year-old, having these adult tantrums.
Yes, they will have tantrums. That's part of the manipulation. And let me keep it real. Before I was getting on my healing journey for real, real, and not emotionally and spiritually bypassing my shit and my baggage, okay?
Mhm.
Because I'm like, I've been around people who read all the books and they go to classes, but that we was all still the same dysfunctional ass niggas. So let me say that if I would have had a
Hey,
child,
don't say that anymore. I
oh,
want
sorry.
to. I don't want to get a strike on my YouTube. Go ahead.
I'll keep it clean. I forgot we're on YouTube. And so we were the same dysfunctional people masquerading as being ambitious and intelligent, but the reality is that we were very much emotionally immature because we were employing denial. We were using things that were meant for growth and advancement in order to stay in the same dysfunctional patterns and behaviors.
Mm.
And being emotionally reactive, still shaming other people and ourselves, still struggling with unworthiness and making other people responsible.
Oh my God. Yes.
And that's real emotional immaturity. But people got to go to a depth in their soul in order to see this and understand it and to recognize who they think they are and who they've learned to be, because that is what is running your relationships and dictating how you raise your children and how you relate to everyone else.
Wow. We're going to talk about love you in a minute, but I want to plug what I've learned in your class. And it took me, it took a minute, but I do know that I definitely experience emotional reactivity as opposed to responding. But taking your class, I didn't realize how emotionally disconnected I was. So, how am I going to respond? Which is why I was reacting. And I did not get it. I did not get it. And that we were so raised just to don't have any emotions, but you better control it. And it's like pressing on the gas and the brake at the same time. So it is just easier to be reactive as opposed to responding. There's such a disconnect. But all of the puzzle pieces are coming together. In the comments, you all let me know what you all think.
You know, one of the things
Ooh.
that make us emotionally reactive is when we're triggered. And see, nothing triggers someone like having a child. So, for a parent who has unhealed trauma and all kinds of wounds, that child is going to trigger them all. And
Mm.
if a parent is not aware, they will make the child responsible for their inability to manage and understand their emotions.
Wow. You all let me know how you felt about that in the chat. Or drop your light bulb emojis. Controlling.
See, I got to get all the way real with this because uh, we talked a little bit about this earlier that an emotionally immature parent is controlling because, see, they are controlling not just out of survival at this point, but because they're getting it's like a narcissist has supply. Some children are supply for their parents.
Girl, yes. Yes.
And you know, they it's like I need to get filled up.
Can
But
you go a little deeper to explain what does a child being a supply for a
oh,
manipulative, controlling parent?
yes. So the child is the one place, one person or people that will guarantee that I'm loved, that I'm seen, that I'm heard and respected. And so supply means that I get my sense of worth and validation from my child. So I might live vicariously through them. I might push them into certain roles so that I'm seen as good. I'm the good person. I'm the good parent. See, look at all the things that my child has done when it's really giving them a boost of self worth and self esteem. Not because the child is a whole being discovering life for themselves, through themselves. No, it's you make me look good. And
Mm.
see, when you make me look good, then I feel good. And it helps to alleviate some of this deep shame and unworthiness I've been hiding most of my life.
Wow. That is deep. I get it. I get it. This, you're going to laugh at this one. Angry.
It's
I
so
know.
interesting because both of these, controlling and angry, are two that Black women are often called.
Yes. And aggressive.
Yes, we are. And let me say that we do have some controlling tendencies. Not all of us, but we do. And the anger that I think that is pushed on us is not always accurate, but I think because of trauma, because of our experiences, a lot of us have a uh, silent rage that has
Ooh.
been brewing for so long for all of the reasons we are discussing. When a parent disempowers you from being yourself, when they invalidate your perception, what you think, when they invalidate your emotions because their emotions are more important, then basically the meta message is because it's a message that we all internalize is I am unworthy. I am unimportant. In order to be loved, I need to be something else. And the result of that, of course, is shame and loneliness, but also rage.
Mm.
It's painful to not be who you are, to not be seen, to not feel like you matter. And that is the one wound that is passed down from generation to generation. Because if I was never taught to see myself, how am I going to know how to see my children?
Wow.
How can I see you? When I look at you, if I got trauma, I'm seeing my own reflection. And if I hate my reflection, how am I going to treat you?
Wow.
That's why we got to do the work. It's non-negotiable.
Absolutely. I would love for you to come back and we can talk about peel all the layers back on the angry, aggressive. Definitely. Pink Dynamite. You said, please drop in the comments. Go a little deeper. What's on your mind? What's on your mind? Talk to us. Well, while you type that, we're gonna go into a few more. I know we went over 8, but I just put some in for honorable mention.
Okay, come on.
Critical.
That goes back to shame.
Yeah.
Shame is connected, and shame is a very powerful motivator, especially for children. I think for all of us, because as Black folks, we have a lot of shame that we will go through great lengths in order to hide, avoid, and deny. And so when someone criticizes you, it triggers that old wound of shame, which is why
Mm,
it's so powerful when people are criticized, which is why a lot of us, it's very difficult. And they say that, I've heard that being said about Black women, about you can't tell a Black woman nothing. Black women don't want to listen to nothing. Black women, a lot of us, our defenses are very high because we've been
yes.
shamed and punished and criticized. And Black men have too. I won't say it's just our experience. But when you have these toxic elders, toxic parents that we're talking about, then it becomes a wound. So you can't hear anyone if they're coming at you in a manner that is critical, because automatically you're a threat. So I can't hear you if you're being critical because I've been criticized so much. Oh, I'm ready to go. Okay. Mm-mm.
You know, remember that link I sent you? It, it was that brother walking through Walmart and he's on the phone and he's saying something and the sisters were ready and loaded and he would say something somewhat disrespectful, but he was talking to someone on the
Oh,
phone.
he
Remember?
said, can I get them cakes?
Yeah. Who the you talking to? You
Oh,
know?
they was, listen, they, I don't know if they was up north, but you always have to be ready because not only could you be attacked at any time, you probably have been attacked a whole lot, but you've
Yeah.
learned that your survival depends on you always staying on ready. Listen, we came up with you ain't got to get ready if you stay ready. And the mouth that we got is a number one weapon that we honed. Okay? To
one
let
of
people know, don't mess with me.
one of my friends, her husband calls her mouth the pink tornado.
I like it. That means it's dangerous.
And it
I like it. I like it. I learned it
I'll
from
tell
my
you
mom.
who it is. I'll tell you who it is after the stream.
I like it.
So there's this guilt trips.
Girl, listen, that could be categorized under emotional blackmail.
Ooh,
And
ooh,
some of our elders will absolutely try to guilt you after all I've done for you. But for real, that's what a narcissist does too. Okay. So we are talking about good old fashioned manipulation. And that's why you have to set boundaries, because if there's a wound there, see, if you don't take away nothing, take away this, what I'm about to say.
mm,
Any toxic person, whether they're elderly, whether they're your parents, your boyfriends, even your children, if you have a wound, an unhealed wound, they will hook onto it and trigger whatever those feelings, insecurities, core beliefs are in order to weaponize it, to control you or to get what they want from you.
Yes.
That's why manipulation is so effective. Because I get you to do what I want you to do without having to force you. I just render you emotionally unstable so that
Wow.
you become mine.
Felicia said, "This is my mother. I caught hell my entire life to this day. She's 87. I'm 65. So sad."
I'm sorry, baby,
I know.
because I don't
Yeah.
know. I can't imagine what that was like for you and for anyone who's had a parent like that. Because we the natural response is to feel responsible for the way that you've been treated, to think that you've done something bad or wrong, or to do
Mm,
your best to work hard to make her happy. And if no one's told you today, it's not your fault.
that's right.
You've done nothing wrong. You are not to blame, and you're not responsible for the emotional labor to take and taking care of her emotionally. You're
I
not.
love that. I love that. Not responsible for taking care of her emotionally.
Yeah, that's
Ah,
an inside job, and we all have to learn it. That's
that
what
spoke,
emotional maturity is.
that spoke to my soul. That hit me right there. And you know my backstory. That hit, whew, that hit me
Yeah.
deep. Wow. Okay. Felicia, thank you so much for your comment.
Thank you for your vulnerability.
Absolutely. So, lack of boundaries, which is
Oh
pretty
God.
much what we started with. with I know.
So, hmm, a toxic parent or toxic person, they're toxic because they violate boundaries. They're toxic because um, they shape the relationship around the boundary violations. And
God damn.
so it is part of your emotional maturity. It's part of your growth that you learn how to set clear boundaries and reinforce them. Now, some of us, because of our trauma, and even if you don't know it, you will know it today, but it is only trauma that would have you feeling guilty for setting boundaries.
I was just gonna say that. Keep going. I'm sorry. I was just going to say that about the guilt part.
The guilt is not natural to human beings in setting boundaries. Ask my 4-year-old. You think she give a damn about my feelings when she telling me I talk too much and I tell her what to do? No. Because see, part of the empathy is learned later on in development. She ain't got there yet, but she has no problem asserting herself because it's natural. It's what we do to protect ourselves. And if we feel guilty, it's because we've been raised and praised not to have boundaries. We've been loved for having allowed people violate our boundaries, and
Oh,
we've been forced to caretake, which means I sacrifice myself. So if I've learned that love is sacrifice, the I'm naturally going to feel guilty because I'm violating my own constitution, my own trauma constitution of love means no boundaries, love means giving your all, love means self-betrayal, love means chaos. You're not following your own script, even though the script is broken, even though the script is from when you were 6 years old. We will still fight. There's parts of us that will fight to maintain that because there's a part of us that believes I will upset someone. I Someone will be mad at me. And when you think about this, these are all childlike responses.
oh my God.
Someone won't talk to me.
Yes.
Someone will be angry with me. Someone won't love me if I set boundaries.
The people pleaser.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. Yes. And that's why we don't set boundaries, but we end up hurt, bitter, angry, trying to control, feeling ashamed, it's still toxic to you. Even if you are getting the attention and the love at basically your own, because you've murdered your own soul, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't complete you. It doesn't give you what you need. It doesn't make you feel whole. It does the opposite. So in essence, it doesn't work because you know on some level that you've betrayed yourself in order to be loved by someone who doesn't even see you. They don't even respect you. And they're not meeting your needs. And they're not meeting your needs because you're not demanding it. You're not asking for it, or you don't even know what you need because your mama and daddy taught you you don't have none. Sorry. I'm sorry.
That was it right there. I have to swallow that one. Let me drink some water. Yeah.
I didn't mean for it to go down like that, but I know because I've lived it and I see it with so many of us. We'll feel lonely and isolated and mad and feel like we can't trust nobody and depend on nobody when we don't let nobody in, when we don't even know what we need, when we don't even trust people to try to meet our needs.
Wow.
And we don't see how we're complicit in all of it because you continue to betray yourself, all because you don't want to feel guilty. But you end up feeling sad and depressed and brokenhearted. So really, it's okay to feel guilty and say no, because the guilt gonna last, but that feeling of empowerment, oh, that gonna stay with you, baby. I promise you.
Right. And Felicia said all of that. And Felicia, also, you're welcome. She said, thank you both for this session. It's helping me. Love and appreciate you both. Thankful, grateful, and blessed.
You know I love you, Felicia. I love you. You're very welcome. And thank you for being here, truly.
Mm-hmm. Well, I love in some of the notes. Oh, I love this. I'll share this because I'm experiencing this currently, real time, that toxic older people view our growth and mental health as threatening.
Yeah.
And then in turn, the guilt will be thrown because you're not playing the role that you were playing when I was able to control you. Now you're AARP age. It's not part of the script. Yeah. I'm just going to shut down.
You know, I think that there are some elders who view our growth as threatening. And I think it's for a couple of reasons. And one is that our healing shines a light on all of the wounds that they've spent a lifetime avoiding, denying, running from, disregarding, devaluing. And when they see us embracing it and knowing that their wounds have caused our wounds, it can be very hard for them to acknowledge the pain that they've caused you and the pain within themselves.
Absolutely.
It can be devastating for them because not only do I have to acknowledge that, everything that I have worked hard to be, I have to acknowledge is a lie. That's a tough pill to swallow, I know, because I've had to acknowledge it myself.
Mm-hmm.
All of the lies I told myself in order to make myself feel better,
yeah,
in order to make myself look more good and to look like I had it all together. And it was a fallacy. It was an illusion. It was a badly written Disney movie.
Disney. That's
my God. Because I was trying to rescue myself with lies and cute clothes and hundreds of pairs of shoes.
Oh, okay. Well, my movie was Training Day.
I got one of those too. You know what I'm saying? I used to tell myself that's my sequel. Okay. Man up. Man up. Okay. Kill or be killed at all costs. Vulnerability. I am loving. Can you imagine Alonzo like in a healthy relationship sitting down talking about my childhood wounds? See, why I kill other people? It's because of the way my mama treated me. No, Lonzo ain't doing that. Okay, not with his main chick or his side chick. Okay.
Oh, I'm crying right now. Oh my God. Yeah, that it's the mirror that they do not want to see.
No,
And yeah, and then it cranks up the
it don't crank up, honey. It be like explosion. Like you done, you done stepped on a landmine.
Right. It's like you're walking, and the next thing you know, your leg is blown off because you have stepped on an emotional landmine.
Yes. That's what it is triggering for a lot of them because they were taught go along and get along. You know what I'm saying? Just they taught us how to be superwoman and keep it moving. You know what I'm saying? Don't
Right.
acknowledge what you feel. So when you are going against the rules that have kept Black women safe for generations, not safe for real, but alive, okay? Play
Right.
safe. That it's like you're being disrespectful.
Mm.
You're being disrespectful. You're exposing all the lies and all the pain that we work so hard to ignore, but not realizing that a lot of us really don't want to pass this on. And it lives in us. So we got to expose the truth. We got to tell the truth about who we are, what we experience, how we feel, why we feel, what we feel, if we are going to make change. Like create a whole new legacy.
I love that. Yes, a whole new legacy. Getting back to our authentic self. It makes me encouraged with our generation and younger
Mm-hmm.
because we have the internet, we have podcasts like this, we have Love You University, which we're all going to talk about in case you all do not know. We're going to talk about that's how we will end the show. So it's very encouraging. Really quick, what is something that someone can do right now, today? Say they're not in therapy. What can they do to erase the guilt of holding boundaries with some toxic older person? How, yeah, how would they navigate through that? Even if it's something very simple, something doable.
Well, first, you have to honor how you feel because your
Mhm.
feelings are valid in how you're being treated. And if you are allowing yourself to maintain these toxic dynamics, I guarantee you these same behaviors, these same way of relating, you are not only teaching your children, but you are engaging in relationships with people who will violate you. Okay? So you need to be clear, and me too, about the boundaries that you intend to set. And so it's very helpful to think about the kind of relationships you want to have because healthy relationships have healthy boundaries. I need to know where I begin and you end. Like we are not
Oh, the
you're not
enmeshment.
exactly. That's the enmeshment. That's the codependence. So you have to be
Mm.
clear about the boundaries that you want and be willing to have a conversation without having an expectation of the outcome. So you have to be willing to communicate the boundaries, even if you don't want to, even if you're afraid, even if you think that they might have a tantrum or do whatever thing that they may do in order to control you, just like a child. You know, this
Mm.
they're gonna get up off the floor. I'm saying they're gonna get hungry, they gotta go to the bathroom. They ain't gonna be crying and shouting and rolling on the floor all day. So if you
Right.
need to take a moment, if you need to create space, you have the right to do that. Because their response should not dictate how or if you choose to protect yourself. Now we're talking about toxic elders here because if you're in a situation where it's abusive, then you have to take another approach to keep yourself safe because the goal is to not trigger your abuse. It's I have to say this as a disclaimer, okay? It's always to keep yourself safe and then make a plan to
Mm,
exit. I just have to say that.
mm.
Safety first, but understand that you have the right. People who are narcissistic, they are emotionally immature. Remember, as Ursula showed us, they're reactive. So you have to also know who you're dealing with, what
Right.
their capacity is, how they could tolerate it, and knowing that you're not responsible for it, but also recognizing your audience. Does that make sense?
Mm, it does. It absolutely does.
So,
Recognizing the audience.
yes. So one of the last things I want to say is that it's important to, when we're talking about elders and people that you probably do care about, that you have to become comfortable with the relationship dynamics changing because you can't change them. You can only change the way that you interact with them. And I'm not talking about disrespect, I'm talking about respecting yourself. So that means that you have to first become comfortable with the idea of disappointing them. And some of us as children with of emotionally immature parents, we struggle with disappointing our parents. We have lived based on their approval because their approval meant that you felt good and they felt worthy. Okay?
God
And
damn.
so being okay with disappointing them, with them, um allowing them to feel however they feel about your changes, but not letting their changes determine who you are.
I've
I hope
struggled
that
with
makes
that. That's a word right there. It's real.
sense. Yeah, and you may have to remove yourself. You may have to create space. You may have to let the other people or persons know that you are choosing to take space to take care of you. You have the right to do that.
I love that. And to not get sucked in with the controlling, not getting sucked in with the guilt trips, not getting sucked in with the boundary violence, all the reactivity, the
And,
tantrums.
and notice all of that for those of you who are listening who are in Love University, that is the drama triangle. So they are pulling you in by playing victim or by shaming or gaslighting you or attacking you. So being the persecutor. And they're looking for you to rescue them from their own emotions
Mm,
by you complying, by you giving in, by you giving them what they want. They're looking for you to rescue them, just like a child does when they're hurt or in pain and they reach for their parent, but you are not their parent. Okay? You are the child. They reach for someone to say, help me feel better, make it better, but that's not your job.
so that goes back to the covert emotional incest.
If they are the covert emotional incest is when they have relied on you as a confidant, when there's a transfer of like sexual energy, like talking about their sexual experiences or their sexual troubles or their deep intimate parts about relationships, especially relationships with the opposite sex, that is none
Mhm.
of your business as a
Right. So Pink Dynamite said, "Thank you, ladies." She has to get back to work, but she had a question.
child.
Did they work so hard, meaning the older people, to ignore or stuff it to be able to be present for their family?
All of that. We're talking about trauma. So they absolutely, a lot of our elders, they weren't taught to necessarily like you need to stuff it down. It was expected. Okay. So it was like this is what you must do. This is how we act. We don't show emotions this way. We just keep it moving. We just you all the things that we still say. There's an expectation of sacrificing yourself that has been
Ooh,
passed down. There's an expectation of being silent. Of this whole idea of being strong is because we were taught that you can handle it. You can handle the abuse. You can handle the disregard. You can handle the disrespect. And the better you handle it outwardly, the better woman that you are. You're a good woman, loyal woman, godly woman, because you don't complain.
Yes. And if you want to go a few more layers, peel back, you all go subscribe to my channel. But then go back. I want to say a year ago, Sarita and I did a stream on the super black woman complex.
Mm, yeah.
And she went into detail. Hell, I didn't even know I was a super black woman until that day during that stream.
I think a lot of us, I didn't know until I, really started reading the research and understanding. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I definitely thought I was strong, and I took pride in how invulnerable I could be, but then didn't realize how this rainbow tornado mouth was cutting people down and blowing up houses and stuff and uprooting all the healthy plants I was trying to grow.
You were getting it down to the root, to
Oh
the
my
foundation.
goodness. I might not have been that bad, but some of my exes will probably say I was.
Felicia said, I have to stay away from my mother and some family members. Kudos to you. You're setting your own boundaries.
You are.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. And one more thing. Let's see. We went over some of these. Can you see that,
I
Sarita?
sure can.
Let me get rid of this graphic here. Do you mind reading some of ways to free yourself from toxic parents? Will I
Sure.
get it off? There we
Stop
go.
trying to please them. Enough said. Set and enforce boundaries. Don't try to change them. Be
Mm,
mindful of what you share with them, because someone who's toxic, remember, any vulnerability will be weaponized against you.
mhm.
Anything that someone can use to hurt, manipulate, or control you will be used against you. So people have, as Brene Brown says, people have to earn the right for you to share with them, for you to share your story. They have to earn it. If they've been proven unreliable or untrustworthy, don't hurt yourself, okay? Be quiet. Know
Mm.
your parents' limitations and work around them. That's just
I just, that has been my emotional speed bump right there,
why.
because I was operating out of little Ursula and not AARP age Ursula.
That is so real. That's so real. That's that is so real, because a lot of us have to grow ourselves up in order to see the limitations and the capacity of our parents as human beings. Okay?
Yes. So I
Not as deities.
romanticize. You say what?
Not as deities. Not as
And
gods.
and that's what I did. Yeah. I romanticized the relationship because I learned in your class and love you. It was easier to focus on one parent than the reality of the other parent who was just as emotionally unavailable.
That's
And
real.
yeah, and I oh my god, I just had a light bulb moment. I'm going to share it, that I too was throwing tantrums because that parent didn't do what I wanted her to do.
That's real right there. And I think I used to do that in my own way too with my mom. But I did it the way that I would react. Like I had no control over my own rage and my anger. That
Oh,
it was always creating more drama between us, and none of the real issues ever got addressed. It was
absolutely.
too much reactivity. And when I was able to see myself for who I was and see her, I was able to deal with her in a completely different way. And I was no longer triggered by her because I understood what her behavior was, and it had nothing to do with me or my value.
Yes, which was easier for me to be with my parent on Saturday. It just so happened you text me, remember?
Yes.
And it was a nice day.
That's wonderful.
It
That's
was.
wonderful.
It was. Let's keep going.
Accept the reason, excuse me, accept that you can't reason with them. Because for people who are emotionally immature, they don't respond to reason. Their reasoning muscles, they ain't even practiced yet. It's like you just expect them to go do a whole workout at the gym. They ain't never been to a gym. Okay.
Yeah.
Ain't even said that they want to go to the gym. Reasoning is something that is must be developed as a part of emotional maturity. Everybody ain't got it. You don't have to be at your parents' beck and call. Remember the role reversal. They are the parent, you are the child. You are not there to completely meet all of their needs. You're there to support and to love, but you're also a whole human being, a whole spirit with whole boundaries, should
Yes,
you choose to
ma'am.
set them. You're not obligated to spend the holidays with your parents. You can do what you want to do. And most importantly, take care of yourself
Yeah.
mentally, physically, and definitely emotionally,
Mhm.
because you are breaking the generational cycles. And just like I thought about this last night, just like what Harriet Tubman said when she was trying to free slaves, she couldn't free everybody because some people didn't even know they were slaves. Okay? And everybody trying to
Right.
get free. Everybody ain't trying to go. They like, I don't know. Listen, I knows it's bad, but this is the bad I knows. I ain't trying to go when you go.
So, if you all have any questions or comments as we get ready to wind down, please drop them in the comments now. This is a safe space, it's a learning space, it's an authentic space, and we want to honor whatever you have. But one book I'm reading is Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I got to page 3 and it took me out. I was so triggered. But I'm going to go back and read it because I'm in a different headspace. I've been learning a lot. I'm still absorbing a lot from Love You and my own therapy that I've gone through. So I have different ears in the soul, different soul right now. But also, I want you all to check out this website. I'm going to drop it. If you are watching, take a screenshot right now. This is Cerita's website. And before you do that, make sure and hit the subscribe button. Okay.
Yes.
Hit it now. I don't mind. But Cerita, I'm going to put your website up again. If you can please talk about Love You as I get your website, and I'm going to drop it in the chat right now.
Thank you. And you can also access it at learntoloveyou.com. I thank you for this opportunity to talk about Love University because, when it comes to healing, this is what Love You is all about. It's about teaching you the tools we get to the root of how and why we struggle with emotional immaturity. And really, you have to grow yourself up. Like a lot of the dysfunction that we experience in our relationships and our parenting and relationship with our goals, with how we see ourselves, is a result of how we were parented, of what we were taught, and the things that happened to us. And Ursula mentioned the book. I was just looking for it because I recommended to her Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And it's really about understanding our relationship with our emotions. And for many of us, it's broken. And if we want to have authentic, healthy love, we have to fix our relationship with ourselves. Because all relationships are a reflection of the relationship that you're having with yourself, and your trauma will be mirrored in all of your relationships.
Facts.
This is how it works. And so Love University is a safe space for sisters, for Black women who are serious about the healing journey, who are ready to do the work to get to the root of the mother wounds, of how we betray ourselves, of the behaviors in which we betray ourselves, and how we relate to each other and how we relate to our children. And so it's all about reconnection with yourself first and foremost. And that allows you to reconnect to yourself, to your spirituality, the God of
Mm.
your understanding, and everyone and everything else. That's how you secure the bag.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yes.
it.
Learn to love you, honey. That's what we doing. Self
That's
love, baby, is the key.
it is the key and it is the bag. It is the bag. So, can you share one golden nugget, one aha light bulb moment to share with our beautiful sisters that are listening and some gentlemen that may be listening?
One golden nugget. I talk a lot about trauma, a lot. And I talk a lot about trauma because I think it's so important to understand how we got here, how
Mm,
why we think the way that we do, you know, how so many of us are disconnected from ourselves and we are very inauthentic, self-medicating and looking for ways to heal the wounds that we refuse to ignore. I say all of that to say I talk a lot about trauma to understand who you were taught to be so that you can be willing to discover who you really are.
mm,
Trauma can only define you to the point in which you allow it because you've learned how to cope. And that's what the Black Superwoman is, and that's what being numb is, and that's what self medicating is. But now it's time for you to learn how to live
and thrive.
and thrive.
Yeah.
Because when you live from conscious intention and from self appreciation, just knowing who you are and all that you are, and being able to accept all of that, that is when you are free. So it's not about acting as if the trauma never happened, healing every single thing, but knowing that you do not have to hide. There is
Mm,
nothing to feel shame and blame about. That you don't have to pretend to be perfect or flawless in order to be loved because you are loved.
I love that. You don't have
That's
to
it.
pretend to be flawless. Mm,
You already are love, and your love heals. Your love heals.
indeed. Indeed. That's perfect. Perfect way to end. Thank you so much. Everyone listening, make sure again hit the subscribe button. It is in the lower right corner. You'll see it. It's in yellow letters. It says subscribe. Hit the subscribe button so you can see when Cerita comes on again. She's definitely a show favorite.
I'm a
And
so
she's
favorite.
right. She's one of my favorites, but she's definitely loved by a lot of the listeners. And make sure and tune in. So today was a bonus episode, but make sure and tune in Wednesday, this Wednesday at 8 p.m. The next topic of discussion will be the military and mental health.
Oh,
And then the week after that is going to be emotional eating.
that's gonna be fun.
Yes, as I'm getting ready to eat lunch now. And after that, we're going to talk about what healing looks like. And then to end the month, the last topic will be Victim Olympics.
Oh,
Yeah, girl.
I would like to
Yes.
hear more about that. That sounds good.
Yes.
So, and
So,
make sure. What about the link for to buy you a coffee?
oh, yes. I will put that in as well. Yeah, that's
Yeah, we might want to buy you a coffee because you deserve it. So,
you know what? You're right, but that link is. Let's do this link. We can do this right now until I get that
okay,
buy me a coffee. Oh, why isn't it showing up?
it's Cash App activities. I can see
Oh,
it.
yeah, that's not it.
Oh,
Yeah. Let me pull up this buy me a coffee. Sarita, give us some more nuggets while I do this.
Well, I love to. I want to thank all of you for being willing to have this root cause conversation because that's my new thing now.
What did
For
you call it? Root
root
cause?
cause conversation.
Ooh.
Yes, being willing to talk about the real and not just the surface, not shaming, but just really being able to look at life and look at our experiences and as Black women. And so, because a lot of us have a lot of shared experiences. And so, I'll say that
Yes.
one of the things that can help mediate trauma responses, the research shows, is community. So, even if you don't join Love You, find some people who will love you for you. You can create your own tribe and support groups, even therapy, counseling. Be willing to be in community because we heal in relationships. If we've been hurt or
Yes.
violated in relationships, we can heal through our relationships. So we have to be willing to allow ourselves to be seen enough to relate, to take off the mask, to be honest. So if it's not love you, find your community of people who will love you, baby.
Exactly. So there's the link. If you like what you heard and you'd like to support this channel, make sure and buy me a coffee. You can click the link. And I love it. I love it. And thank you all so much for your support. Oh, Sarita, guess
Yeah.
what?
What?
You are still a Black girl that has her shift together.
Ah, thank you, honey. I work for this shift, okay? I work for it every day. All right.
Everyone, thank you so much for this next episode. I hope to see everybody on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you like anything that you heard and resonated with your soul, made your soul vibrate, please make sure to like, comment, share this channel so that the algorithms can get up. This is all about the healing. You all have a good evening. Thank you so much, Sarita. I love
Mwah.
you.
Love you all. Thank